So, hello everyone. My name is Dave Schmidtke. I'm working for the Saxony Refugee Council. I'm here today with Natalia Gebert. She's working for a Polish NGO, Otwarty. And today we want to speak about the situation of refugees in Poland, about refugees between the border of Belarus and Poland, and about the situation, how an NGO in Poland can support the refugees. So, welcome, Natalia.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, and maybe for the start, maybe you would like to, in a short cut, just introduce yourself and Dom Otwarty.
Dom Otwarty has been working with refugees and asylum seekers in Poland since 2016. But our work on the Belarusian border started, obviously, when the humanitarian crisis there started. That would be summer 2021. And it continues today. What we normally do when we do not talk about the situation at the border is help refugees and asylum seekers in their day-to-day matters. They get official letters in Polish they don't necessarily understand, or they don't know how to go about the whole thing. Or they need their tax return filled in, or they need help with setting a medical appointment, things you and I normally do without second thought because we know how the system works. Unfortunately, the newcomers are only gaining this knowledge and they need some support on the way.
So when you speak about your work, how it is possible for a Polish NGO to do that kind of support? Is there, any foundation that helps you, any kind of support by the Polish state, or how is it possible that you work?
There is no support from the Polish state dedicated specifically to refugee assistance. There are some grant calls that anyone can apply for. But beyond that, most of our money comes either from international donors or from individual people's donations here in Poland.
Okay, so this is like the general situation, not just for Dom Otwarty. I think you're speaking about other organizations like Ubagranica. I think they have the same basement, how they're able to work. And you just mentioned the summer 2021. There was also a couple press statements here in Germany about it. But then I think after a couple months, a lot of people, lost the interest, or the attention was not that strong anymore. So when you think back about the summer of 2021, and how did you came to the point that you have to help? What kind of news shocked you during that time?
It was late spring, early summer when we started hearing first rumors about pushbacks. And by we, I mean all organizations, or most of the organizations here in Poland that work to assist refugees. So we decided to go out there and check for ourselves to see what's actually going on. And even this first reconnaissance, so to speak, turned out very full of evidence. We met a few groups who were in need of direct legal assistance. And they told us that, yes, it's not their first time in Poland. They've been here a few times before, but they've been pushed back. That was a moment when we all decided that this cannot stand. I mean, we understand that Poland is generally rather reluctant to recognize refugees. If you look at European data, you will see that the recognition rate in Poland is extremely low. But before that crisis, it applied mostly to people fleeing Chechnya and former Soviet republics, because for them, we are obviously the first EU country. There were very few people from Middle East. Poland refused to take part in the EU relocation scheme, as you may know. And here, all of a sudden, we have people from, I'm sorry, people from Middle East, people from African countries coming in and being pushed back. So what we did was we banded together to form Grupa Granica. Grupa Granica is a sort of civic movement because it combines NGOs, individual volunteers, local residents who decided to help, to join the help. But there are also other organizations outside Grupa Granica. If there is one good thing that came out of this crisis is that a number of local NGOs has increased because quite a few people initially volunteered as helpers, and then they decided that this needs to be tackled in a more systematic manner. So they set up their own NGOs. There are quite a few new actors on the scene, so to speak. This crisis, it was the Polish audience, Polish people heard about it mostly when the event in a small village called Usnaż Górny has happened. It's a small village. It has 10 houses altogether, maybe 15, and you would be hard pressed to find it on a map. However, it was also a place where a group of Afghani people tried to cross the border and seek asylum in Poland. And they were prevented from doing so. If you Google the name, you can see the pictures when there is a line of Polish border guards, soldiers standing in front of the group. And there is a line of Belarusian OMON, which is a special police unit, standing behind the group. So they couldn't move either way. Poland claimed that those people are on Belarusian soil, so Poland is not responsible. We cannot intervene in a foreign country. There was a digital investigation done later, and it turned out that the camp was actually partially on the Polish soil. Plus, there is a number of pictures with those people holding placards saying, "I seek asylum, we are dying, help us." And at all the time, they were not allowed to use medical help. There were doctors on site who offered to help and check, but they were not allowed to approach the group. Ocalenie Foundation, one of the NGOs that works with refugees and migrants here in Poland, was first on site, and they stayed with the group as long as they could. They had a translator with them, and she was communicating through a megaphone. So when she was trying to talk so that people could hear her over the line of soldiers, the military would turn on truck engines so that she couldn't be heard. It was obviously a practice against those people's rights because, hey, they have rights to know what rights they had.
Yes, when you were just speaking, what came through my mind is we have a Human Rights Convention on the European Union. We have the Geneva Convention. So there's a basement in Europe how to treat refugees. And during that time, I think on both sides, on the Belarus sides, because people from Iraq I met, they told me Belarus soldiers told them, you will be killed. If you want to get back into, to Belarus, you will be killed. So please go back into Poland, into the European Union, because behind this, there was a political plan that was quite obvious, that Belarus and Russia planned to divide the European Union again on the question of how to treat refugees. And as you just mentioned, there were a lot of people from Middle East, so people from war zones, people from states collapsing, so people who were accepted in a lot of European states during that time when there would be a normal treatment and a normal asylum-seeking process. But yeah, on the Poland side, this was they prevented this in installing a military exclusion zone. Maybe you can, yeah, tell a bit more about this zone, how it made it difficult for you and for other people to enter.
At the time when the zone was established, and that was early autumn, we already had teams moving around helping people. And of course, we have the Fundamental Rights Charter, we have Universal Human Rights Convention, and all those laws. It didn't stop the then ruling government from amending Polish legislation, so that pushbacks would be, well, not legal because they're still illegal, but legalized. There were quite a few court judgments in the recent years saying that this regulation that tried to make pushbacks legal is illegal in itself, and it should be revoked, but it never happened. However, coming back to the zone, the government established about a 5-kilometer wide zone along the border that no one could enter. Other than the military, of course, and border guards, etc., and local residents, if they could prove that they actually live within the zone. No journalists, no humanitarian workers, no doctors, no one.
Also, no politicians from.
Yes, there was a member of parliament who set up her official office in one of the localities within the zone, and twice she was refused access. And what's happened there, apart from putting it in quite a lot of land in the dark, because no one knew what was actually going on there. It was also a start of a sort of a Polish Wild West. The area along the border became a zone when the law does not apply. Whoever has a bigger gun is right. You get people with in military outfits, but with no IDs, with their faces covered. So if they stopped you, you didn't really know if they were soldiers or bandits or whatever. Right? You couldn't identify them. They wouldn't identify themselves. They used vehicles with covered plates, so you couldn't write down the numbers and check if those were actually legal soldiers or someone else, imposters. There were quite a few cases of guns being aimed at people, people being kept on the ground for a prolonged period of time, just because they happened to be near the zone. For entering the zone itself, you could get a fine of considerable amount. Or, of course, if you wanted to challenge that, you could, but then the border guards would tell you, okay, but we'll have to detain you for 24 hours. Which for many people was not an option because they had families, children, work, and so on. So they would rather pay the fine and continue with what they were doing. Even the Council of Europe's Commissioner for Human Rights, Dunia Mijatovic, who arrived to see in her own eyes what's going on. It was a state-level visit, okay? And I have to pause here to turn off my vacuum cleaner a second. I'll be right back.
So
it was a state-level visit. She got all the permissions from the Ministry of Interior and so on. And when she arrived at the checkpoint at the zone, she was stopped by a policeman and a border guard. They both said, "Okay, I can see your papers, but we need to ask our respective commanders." They made the calls, and the police person said, "Okay, you can go." But then the guy from the border guards came out and said, "Sorry, my commander says you cannot, so you're not going."
So even an official member of the European Union,
yeah,
her task was to monitor a situation there, to observe what's
yes,
happening
she
there.
was not allowed to enter, even though she had all the permissions. Everyone knew she was coming, and she is a state official. Okay. The Human Rights Commissioner here in Poland could enter the zone. That was the only institution they couldn't stop. And they helped, their team helped a lot back then. But they couldn't keep their team on the ground at all times, of course. And the very idea that you actually have to engage, international officials, the ombudsman, the members of parliament, to have the law complied with is absurd. Unfortunately, this mentality that grew up back there, that whoever has the bigger gun is right, still continues. There are still the zone is not there anymore, but there are still checkpoints, and basically the people in uniform think they are the absolute power there. A year back, we did a celebration of the anniversary of the events in Osnabrück, and both access roads to the village were controlled. So everyone who was going in was stopped, their identity checked. When we asked the police what they're doing, "Oh, this is just, traffic control. We're making sure you have all the necessary equipment, like a fire extinguisher, first aid kit, and so on." And I was like, "Okay, then why do you need my ID? I'm just a passenger. I'm not the driver." "Oh, it's for your own safety. So if something untoward happens, we know who to look at."
So really, trying to sum up all these events, it's behind my imagination that this is still possible nowadays. That when we sum up, there was a military exclusion zone based on no European law, based on no Polish law. It was a law-free zone, and is a huge amount of effort to install this. It's like a huge amount of soldiers were placed there at the border. And do you have numbers? You can guess how many people entered 2021, and maybe also compare like how many people entering through Belarus right now, and like to see how many people entered, and yeah, maybe you can also tell about were there any injuries, maybe also provoked by security forces or even worse for the refugees?
I don't have the exact numbers at the top of my head, but if you reach out to the site grupagranica.org, you can find all the reports there. It is estimated that since the beginning of the crisis, Grupa Granica assisted about 20,000 people, mostly coming either from Middle East or African countries, although it could vary from month to month. And of course, there is also the seasonal fluctuation, right? There's less people crossing in winter, more people crossing when it gets warmer. Remember, we are talking about the area that is a primeval forest. So the only forest left in Europe that actually still stands since Middle Ages or longer. The trees there are of this size that you cannot hug them. You would need a few people to hug a tree. If it collapses, it can provide shelter for a whole family. Okay, this is the wildlife zone. So of course you have wolves, you have bears, you have other wild animals. And it's the area where there's a lot of swamps.
Mhm.
So unless you know well where to go and how to go, it's simply dangerous. There was a number of cases where people nearly drowned in swamps. Or if they go through, they are of course wet through to the bone, and consequently at a very high risk of hypothermia.
So there were cases that, yeah, you monitored or other NGOs monitored where people nearly drowned, or yeah, also
Yes.
other people were frozen to death in these forests.
We'll probably never know how many victims of this inhumane policy are there. What we could confirm is 60 people dead. The latest death came in March, or the latest discovery of death came in March. So under the new government. But this is a huge area. Like I said, this is a very hard to walk in area, even for local people who know how to get around. But the first winter, 2021, local people would comment, would talk between themselves that wolves are extremely quiet. They must have found food elsewhere. And you can imagine what kind of food it was.
It's really shocking. It's embarrassing for the European Union when you have a continent with over 500 million inhabitants. And for example, now in Germany, there are just from Syria over 1 million people. There are from Ukraine over 1 million people. I think in Poland it's nearly the same situation. And there we could all see if there's the will to help, if there's a will to integrate refugees here in our system, there would be a way. And I think these couple thousands of people, that was not a number yeah, the European Union couldn't deal. It was just yeah, a policy in their time by a member of the European Union that was completely against any human rights every of these countries is describing. And also, yeah, they have a lot of contracts they were signing that this could not be possible. And how is the situation for the people living there at the border? Do you have any impression of people experiencing that, working not for NGOs, like people live next to the border of Belarus, how they describe the situation? And yeah.
Just to refer to your comments, to be fair, Poland is not unique. It's in the sense that it's unfortunately, this is the general EU policy at the borders. You get Croatian police hurting people, right? You get people drowning in Evros River, which is a border river between Greece and Turkey. You get human hunters in Bulgaria, the sort of local militia that hunts people. And it goes on with the approval of the European Union. So as much as it hurts me to say it, Poland is not unique in this respect. We didn't invent pushbacks. We just implemented them. We are the only country that was ever proud of implementing pushbacks. I don't know if you recall the first time there were accusations of pushbacks at sea. The Prime Minister of Greece, when asked about this at a press conference, he totally denied. He said, it's a libel, it's a defamation. Greece is a cradle of democracy. We would never, and so on. Of course, everyone knew that they were doing pushbacks and it was documented, but at least they did not admit it. Here in Poland, oh yes, we do pushbacks and we are going to do more and better. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
As for the local people, See, this is an area that is very scarcely populated. There's a lot of tiny villages that young people have moved out from. So there are elderly people left. This is also the only area in Poland where minority is actually a majority. You get lots of people with Belarusian roots or Ukrainian roots. Remember that this specific border went back and forth quite a few times in the 20th century. And since people are usually tied to the land they live on, they weren't moving with the border, so we just became subjects of another state. So those people who have Belarusian or Ukrainian roots are also rather reluctant to get involved because, well, they are a minority. Okay, they might be in majority in this specific area, but generally they are a minority. And minorities are always at risk when they try to stand up for their own or someone else's rights. One of the efforts we did in 2021 was walking through those villages and talking to people and telling them that, yes, it's okay to give someone a glass of water. Yes, you don't have to call the border guards. That's not your legal obligation. You can give someone food or clothing, and it's not a crime, and so on. And why those people are here in the first place, right? And there was this one village where most people spoke Belarusian, actually, rather than Polish. So when I asked in Polish, when I started talking to them in Polish, they would give me the lines straight from the regime TV station. And they are invaders, they are threats, they are a risk, they will come and steal from us, rape us, murder us in our sleep, whatever. And when I switched to Russian, unfortunately I don't speak Belarusian, but I do speak Russian. It was like, 180 turn degree. We get it. We used to be refugees ourselves. And yeah, if they come by, they will get water, they will get food. Okay, I can't help them more because I don't have much myself, but what I can, I will share, right? But this was the version for someone who speaks Russian, so a language closer to Belarusian. It's not the same language, mind you. But the official, when I was talking Polish, was the official party line, and that's it. And yes, this is the area that also remembers bieżeństwo of 1915. When during the war, the Russian army decided to use the scorched earth policy. So they would drive out everyone living there and force them to go deeper into Russia, like a few million people, and burn everything that's left to the ground. And coming back was a long process. So, and they do remember. It's inherited memory. You could say this refuginess is in their genes. So yes, many local people are very positively, very positive about helping others. But then they don't want to get their heads into big politics, like why those people are here, could they go somewhere else, why do we need to bother? No, it doesn't interest them. Okay, there is a person in need, then there is a person in need, period. What happens then? It's not their problem. That means they would often call border guards, especially that the border guards are local help patrol as well. In those small villages, if there is a problem, if you're stuck in snow, or you are too fragile to, I don't know, cut down a tree, or anything else happens, you call the border guards. You don't call ambulance, you don't call the police, you call the border guards because they are the only unit around.
Okay.
So this also put the whole situation put also a lot of stress on the community work border guards have been doing for years. And because, hey, they couldn't possibly be doing those terrible things people say they are doing, right? It's not just a unit. It's Franek I went to school with. It's Janek who's friends with my daughter, and he's such a nice kid. He always says good morning and helps me carry my shopping. They are good folks. They could not possibly throw a pregnant woman over a fence, except they did.
Except they did, and even when there are a lot of proofs, not just monitoring of you like NGO works, there's also a movie, Green Border, that shows what's happening there, the cruel scenes. I will never forget like an Afghan woman who was trying to convince the people at the border because she studied law and she knew that she had rights under the European Union and in the European Union. And a couple of weeks later, her body was found in the forest. And these things happened. And that's why it's really important that we speak about this today. And when we look at the present situation, there is a new government in Poland. Everyone in the European Union celebrated that the Peace Party is not in power anymore. And after that, from my impression in Germany, no one even looked at what's happening now, how Poland now treats refugees, what's happening now at the border. Can you say, like, after a couple months after the new government is installed, is there any change?
No. There is no change whatsoever. The new government said there would be no more deaths at the border. Well, except we had one just last month. They said that pushbacks are not acceptable, but they continue to happen. Now they said it would be, ethical and humanitarian what they do at the border. I have no idea how do you push back someone ethically and in a humanitarian way, probably with a smile on your face. That's the all humanity you're going to get. One of the announcement was that the border guards will now have their own rescue teams that will intervene when someone is in need of assistance. Because what we've been saying as Grupa Granica and other organizations from the get-go, what we are doing is something the state is supposed to do, okay? And actually, if we refuse to help, we might be subject to criminal liability. There is a law that says that if you don't help someone whose life or health is at risk, you might go to jail. All right? So if Poland was a human person, it would go to jail for like 25 years for what it's doing at the border. And there is no change. And people are coming, and they will be coming, because once a migration route is open, there is no way to closing it. No matter how many fences you put, no matter how many dogs you set on refugees, as long as we are not bigger bastards than those who people are running from, this kind of deterrence just won't work.
Yes, and what this clearly shows is that we all, people here, people in Poland, everyone, we have to be conscious about what's happening there. We have to look carefully when there's any monitoring report published by you. And even when you just said there's no support by the state, that we as a population here who cares about human rights should definitely support and donate. And when we're speaking about NGO structures in Poland, do you have any idea how it works on the other side of the border in Belarus? Are you in contact with NGOs, if they are still existing, or with some activists on the Belarus side?
There are no NGOs in Belarus anymore. There used to be at least one we used to work with on various refugee matters, including soft pushbacks in the terrestrial border crossing back before the COVID pandemics. But their organization has been closed since then by the authorities. Some members are still in Belarus, and we are in contact, and they help as much as they could. However, it's always at risk to themselves. Others, because of what they did before, had to flee and found safety in Poland or other EU countries. And they also seek to help through their contacts on the ground. But the thing is that any help that might be provided, and that's usually humanitarian aid, like food, shelter, basic needs, okay, can be done only when a refugee is in a city, in Grodno, in Minsk, whatever else. When they are at the border, they are in a Sistema, which is a strip of land fenced through Białowieża forest, which is a military zone. So no one else can go there, and not even the Red Cross. And truth be told, I haven't told you even 1/4 of the horrors that are going on out there, or have been going.
Yeah, and now we just have like 186 kilometers of steel next to the border to Belarus, and
steel and concertina wire. And the concertina wire is much more dangerous. It's a wire with those small blades on it, so people and animals get cut when it touches, and it cuts to the bone. We are seeing a number of injuries, not even from the fence itself. Of course, if you fall from the fence, you twist an ankle, you break a leg, this happens. But many injuries from the wire. And the wire has been there for so long that some parts of it are already covered by plants, so it cannot be seen. You can fall onto it and bleed to death.
And you just mentioned in the talk we had before that there are another fences built beside this steel wall. There are another fences built. You told me like 5 meters away, and then also like there is another zone of 50 meters or something. And
well, the concertina wire is supposed to be the second, third, and fourth line of defense, so to speak. So yes, the first line is lie down on the fence itself and along it. The second is on the other side of the road that runs along the fence. And then there are two others put in a distance, respectively. You have concertina wire across the rivers. So if anyone comes up with the idea that since there is no fence on the river, it could be crossed, then no dance because there is the wire. Unfortunately, the same applies to animals. They don't get the idea that there is a fence. They used to roam back and forth between Belarus and Poland. European bison, elks, wolves, lynxes, and so on. And they get caught on this wire and bleed to death. Many nature defenders here in Poland have been raising this issue that whatever is going on at the border damages not only human beings, but also animals. And there is no sign for this wire to be removed. Supposedly, if we trust the authorities, which we don't, the idea is to make the electronic surveillance more effective and then remove the physical barriers. To some extent, of course, the fence is not going anywhere. But how it will go remains to be seen. Just to wrap up, to give you an example that perfectly well shows what's going on. Yesterday or the day before, Polish border guards posted on their Twitter that they helped a woman who just delivered a baby, so gave birth in the middle of forest. And they found her and they helped her. They took her to the hospital and all that. What they don't tell you is that she's been pushed a few times before.
So she was forced by the same forces that helped her in that moment. She was forced to deliver the baby in the forest and not under the hygiene situation a baby should be delivered here. And they prevented proper treatment of her. And also, I think it's not clear what happened to her afterwards. I think the chance that
we don't know yet. That there is a chance that since once she's in the hospital, A lawyer can approach her, ask her if she would sign the power of attorney and could represent her. So there is a chance that as long as we know and we manage to take the power of attorney, we could fight for her legal situation. Plus, well, pushing back someone now, that specific person now would be, bad publicity.
Yeah.
So they probably won't do it. And, as cynic and as sarcastic as it sounds, as I'm saying, inside I'm all horrified that your safety depends on this. If you make a good story for the border guards, that's not the way it should be.
Yeah, maybe to end our interview, our talk right now, first of all, thank you for your work, because right now we have so much right-wing populism. We have so many right-wing extremists on the rise here in Europe, not just in Poland, not just in Germany. And the arguments they use are produced by fake news. And hearing you right now, hearing this atrocity, you're completely right. There's a huge hypocrisy all over the external borders towards human rights in the whole European Union. But hearing this, people fighting on the external borders for their lives is so important to look at what's really happening and to have arguments against these people. I just can thank you for your NGO, for the work you do, and hope you keep on going, and hope that there are a lot of more people supporting you.
Thank you.